on the Facebook event, it says that Nikki Ward will be sharing what it is to be a trans activist. And I can't think of anything more ghastly than that. I don't really identify with any of the elements of that brief statement. I'm a funny woman. You can be the judge of that later. I'm an intelligent woman, although I did agree to show up here. I'm an English woman. I am now also a Canadian woman. I'm a trans woman. And I'm about a 6-foot-tall woman. All of those statements are equally true and really equally helpful or unhelpful. The trans element is just stuff. It just tells you a bit about how I got here, but really not terribly enlightening. As to the activism, or the activist thing, I don't even know what the fuck that is. I thought, what a great question to ask, and I misunderstood the question, and I choose to continue to misunderstand the question, which is, what are you most proud of your parents about or for? And my mother, I am tremendously proud of, for a variety of reasons, not least of which is she was the one who came up with the phrase, fuck the begrudges. She lives life unapologetically and has had a part to play in, for those old-timers, a magazine called Spare Rib, which was the first feminist magazine in the UK. She spearheaded a woman's right to choose. She put her money where her mouth was when it came to the National Union of Miners' Strike in the 1970s, where we billeted miners. And I'm proud of my mother's mother, who was one of the first female lawyers in the UK, joined the practice with my grandfather, and amongst other things, represented union leaders who, unions and abortionists. I'm proud of my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather, who also worked in the same law firm. My great-grandmother, who was also a healer, a doctor, in a time when it was very, very, very difficult to be a female doctor. I'm proud of the fact that when coming out for all of us, we all come out at all various stages in our life, reveal more about ourselves. Oh, one other thing about the ist thing. If I must be reduced to a single statement about I am, I would prefer to describe myself as, say, I am a poet. I'm proud of that title. I think it's expressive. I'm a poet in that I make art and that my chosen medium are words. And so I can live with that. But if it has to end with ist, I think I would prefer word artist. But that really describes only what I do or try to do. I think I would most like to be described as a humanist rather than an activist. What I've learned about being trans is that it's not a thing. Sounds weird now. I loved my label in the early days, but latterly it seems to be something that divides me, separates me from other people. I love the labels that we have, and on the LGBTT2SIQQAA spectrum, I'm very good value. I have a partner who is female, and therefore I'm good on the L. I identify as a gay woman. What the fuck, why not? I identify as bi, not because, no, seriously, I identify as bi because in many respects I think people who are bisexual are the yang to being people who identify as trans. After all, being bisexual doesn't mean you're indiscriminately interested in just fucking everybody. No, that's being a gay man. Sorry, they can take it. You know they can take it. So it doesn't mean bisexual, doesn't mean being indiscriminately a slut, or again, that just my friends actually. But it means someone for whom gender is not the first and most interesting thing that attracts them. And frankly, even if I am strongly attracted to other women, I'd like to be the kind of open-minded person that was equally attracted regardless of gender. So bi, I'll take the bi. The transsexual and the transgender, what the hell? One, transsexual is a medical description, and I've been diagnosed as that, and transgender is the sociological description, and I've been diagnosed as that well. Two-spirited, unfortunately, is a First Nations term. I couldn't use that without being accused correctly of cultural appropriation. But the notion does appeal to me. Intersex, Again, this notion of being somehow chromosomally different, I don't know, but it resonates for me. I think differently. Queer. All right, and questioning. Well, why the fuck not? You know, that's the question. What's left? Asexual. Well, you know what? I've been in a long-term relationship with my partners, and yes, we do get jiggy with it. Is that what the kids say now? But we also watch Game of Thrones and then fall asleep. And so that may well be asexual. And allies, well, I try to be my own best friend. What I've discovered is, so I really am very good value on that spectrum. But all of those labels, all those more finely divided segmentation, I don't think it's terribly helpful. Not to me, anyway. I don't feel disintegrated. I don't feel a lesbian identity, a gay identity, whatever. I feel an integrated whole person. And so I'm trying to live that way. What I've discovered is that my journey to this place, to this stage right now, and the pain, yes, there's been pain, but there's also been funniness. What I've discovered is my own humanity. And in the work that I try and do in reaching out to other people to explain what it is to be trans, I find myself invariably talking about what it is to be human. And I love that work, where people come in saying, when the people come in looking at the freak at the front of the room and leave realizing and embracing their own freakishness and realizing that we are all brilliantly different, just like each other. And that being diverse isn't some kind of kumbaya, let's all get along and smoke some bloody whatever, hemp-based underwear. Being diverse and different is not just nice, why can't we all get along? It's incredibly useful because diversity provides strength. It stops us from becoming extinct as a group. I'm convinced that there is a purpose for being a fag, or a queer, or a homo, or a fruit, or a trans person, whatever your reclaimed identity you have. If there is a genetic component to what it is to be me, or you, or you, or you, let's face it, if it wasn't genetically useful, it would have died out long ago. It's true that a tribe is more successful if it contains people who can decorate it properly. So I'm proud of my own place in my own human family. And I realized that one of the great stories I have to share with you is a coming out story. And I know they are tiresome, and I hate them, but we all got to do it. But mine's better than yours. And, no, it is. No, it really is. And it's to do with when I came out to my ex. Now, bless her soul, for a person of her limited understanding, she did the best she could. It wasn't good enough, but what the hell. So when I came out to my ex, she emphasized it got nasty and ugly, and there's no point in focusing on that. But one of the things she wanted to do was out me to my mum. And I thought, geez, I have to manage this in some way. So back in those days, way back when, they had a thing called the internet. And with it, you could send electronic messages, letters as it were, in a way that was E for electronic mail. And so I prepared an email to send to my mother. Of course, she would then obviously log on frequently, possibly 2 or 3 times a month, and to check her email. Anyway, so I wrote this long email, and I'm afraid we're all guilty of doing that. It's rather like, I think everybody goes through a blue eyeshadow period, if you know what I mean. On some people it looks good, you know what I mean, right? On some people it looks good, and on some people it's just like, no. That looks sweet on an 8-year-old girl, but on a 40-year-old trans woman, just not going to work. And I think to a degree there's an element of that in terms of coming out. And I wrote this long thing, and I've always been the same way, and I'm still the daughter you always loved. And you know, and then turn the page. I'm writing on and on and on, and I've always felt this way. I've never really felt other people could understand the way I felt about myself, but really deep inside I knew they was different because God doesn't make shit in the universe, and even though I sometimes doubted the existence of a higher power, I still believe that I am worth saving. And you know, turn to page 2, and so I'm writing this long missive, and I would like to tell you that it was good, but it wasn't. It was shit. But I needed to do it. It's a bit like 14-year-old poetry. And blue eyeshadow. Okay. So I wrote this thing, and I figured there's no bloody way that she's going to open this in time and that my ex is going to muck this up royally. And so I picked up the telephone and called up my mum. And I called my mother by her first name, and not because there's nothing trendy about it. It's all very trendy to say mother by your first name. I just did it because if I didn't, when I was a child, I realized if I didn't call her by her first name, she wouldn't turn around. Very pragmatic child then, a very pragmatic adult now. So I'm on the phone to my mother, and I said, Anne, I'd like you to listen to me, and I'd like you to not interrupt me, because I feel if you stop me, I won't have the courage to go on. So she says, fair enough. By the way, I should point out that my mother speaks like the Queen, but actually a little bit more upmarket. She said, certainly, darling, I'm completely at your beck and call. Please, please go. I said, well, firstly, let me say that we have children, and I've always been proud of the children be safe with me. But since I was a small child, that I felt this certain way, and this, even when I was at school, and then even though there's a higher power up above, that I feel that I must whether I came into the world, and that I was, and you know what is male or female anyway? So, and page 2. Anyway, go on to this bloody thing. And at the end of it, I said, and I said, therefore, henceforth I must live this way, or otherwise I shall die. Are you completely finished? Yes, I am, man. I'm finished. Well, what can I say? Firstly, I feel terribly flattered that you feel able to tell me this. However, I am compelled to say, what on earth possesses you to think that I give a fuck? And I'm sure it's all terribly, terribly important to you. But you fucking North Americans are so bloody self-absorbed. I can't possibly... I'm sure it's terribly interesting to you, but I just can't see how it impacts me in any fucking way whatsoever. And so, of course, darling, we'll allow you any way that you feel like tromping around, so long as you don't frighten the horses, I simply don't care. It's a good one, isn't it? That is, I told you it was a good coming out story, and boy, does it ever straighten my ass out. Later on, when I went to visit her and my family back in the UK, and we went to Spain, and I spent a lot of time growing up in the island of Mallorca, and overcompensating like crazy. I had a good time overcompensating though. And I was a real tearaway, and I turned up this first time after, I don't know, 20 plus years. And we met in the plaza there, and lots of expats got together. And my mother introduced me to the rest of the people. She said, oh, Gustav, how are you? I said, you remember Nicholas? Nichola, formerly Nicholas. That was it. She offered no explanation whatsoever. And at the time, I was really, really upset because, you know, my Nichola, Nicky, I'm a woman, hear me roar. Hear me roar and pay attention to me. In fact, people were nonplussed. Now, this was like 15, 20 years ago, before trans was as cool as it is today. I mean, right now, never mind orange is the new black, trans is the new orange. Thank you. Copyright, registered trademark. So there was no framework for any of this stuff. And my mother said, well, you know, I asked my mother afterwards, are you ashamed of me in some way? I said, good God, no. I said, but if they really want to know anything, they can fucking well look it up. I mean, that's what the internet is for. And she was absolutely right. It set the stage for my own understanding of what it is to be brilliantly and different, just like other people. Later on, when I came out to my own daughter, she was, I think, 7 or 8 at the time, and I had limited ability to visit my daughter because of bad stuff. And I was doing the dishes, and the sunlight shone through. One of the visitation requirements was that I had to dress as a guy in order to be with my children. Unfortunately, I was doing the dishes, and the sunlight came through my shirt and revealed that I was a little more shapely upstairs than I had been past. And my daughter said, Daddy, do you have boobs? And I thought, well, actually, that's probably a pretty good cue for the conversation that we need to have. And I said, listen, darling, there's something I have to tell you. Well, I then spent the next 45 minutes tap dancing around the bloody statement. And my daughter finally, bless her soul, said, darling, Nicky, spit it out. If you can't be proud of who you are, for God's sake, what's the point? Now those are the two women I'm sandwiched between. Brilliant, beautiful, beautiful. My son also, beautiful, beautiful young man, now an older young man. I'm proud of being part of that human family. I am proud of the humility. I've learned some humility along the ways, and God knows there are plenty of people looking to teach me still more humility. But the truth is that, well, there's a human experience, and that is something that we all share. And I'm proud of good question. What am I proudest of? What is my mother proud of? I'd like to think she's proud of me. I know I'm proud of her.